Hello everybody, welcome back. Unversed podcast, Danny here, and today I'm going to be talking about City Hunter. Written by Tsukasa Hojo, published from Shonen Jump, main reason why I'm reading it. Went from 1985 to 1991 with 35 volumes. I've only read up to 31, or I believe 30. That is all that was translated at the time when I was reading it. 160 chapters in total. And boy, let me tell you, those were not easy chapters to read. It was, those early chapters was just ridiculous to read. Honestly, like, oh my goodness gracious. There was a lot of pages, a lot of dialogue. And I was like having a little hard time keeping up with it, man. I was like, wow, like I'm just keeping going. Okay, I figured, yeah, it did have an anime. It looked like 2 seasons. It had a film, which, it had 3 seasons. Okay, and then, so I'll probably watch the film, maybe come back to you guys. 3 films, whoa! And then another season. I'm looking at the wiki. Another season, wow. So the main reason, before we even get anywhere, the main reason I read City Hunter was because the main character, Ryo Saiba, became a playable character in Jump Force, and, Jump Force, I'm going to be getting it, yes, but, one of my problems with it was it trying to take the serious route, right? And by them doing that, they said no sports characters, which is sad because the main character for Hinomaru Zumo, right? Hinomaru, he is totally should be playable in this game. And when they said no sports, and I was like, dang, that kind of sucks. Plus there's no assist character. So that's a lot of characters not showing up in this game. But then they added this guy and I was like, what? Okay, no, now I got to read it. Let's see what's going on. So that's the main reason why I read it. Man, there's a lot of movies and spin-offs and stuff. And while I was looking through this, I also saw that it has a Korean drama, which threw me off too. And all the names are in Korean, of course. And, to my biggest surprise, which I will be watching, I'm going to find it and watch it. There was the live action movie, which stars Jackie Chan as Ryo. So I can't wait to check that out. Probably have the guys check it out too. So that's going to be something. So again, yeah, I read 160 chapters, and the main thing that I get out of this is the art. I love the art. It's definitely a piece of its time, right? Was it mid 80s to early 90s, right? That's just the pinnacle point of this art. Now, the art does have one major flaw, and that is, there's a lot of same face when it comes to the female characters, to the point where some returned and, you don't recognize them. I mean, the only way you can really, distinguish the characters here with his art, for females anyways, is, their hairstyle. That's the only way he differentiates them, basically. They all have like the same body type, build. I mean, sure, there's clothing too. But yeah, like, the art's just really good. I like this aesthetic a lot. Actually, one of the cover chapters, I've actually saved it before. Didn't know where it was from. Now I know. So that's pretty cool. Other than that, it is one thing I really wanted to talk about is I like it. I think it's pretty good. The story is solid. It can be solid. The writing, when it gets serious, it really is pretty good. Now, again, mid 80s, early 90s, this is a time, especially in weekly Shonen Jump, that, this is a time where seinen mangas, they weren't a big thing back in the day. Around this time, you're not going to see, I mean, it's not even really a seinen manga, but what's currently in Jump right now, Dr. Stone, you really wouldn't see anything like that in this time frame when City Hunter was around. You probably would have, if there was a lot more comedy, which is what City Hunter has. It's a main part of its story. Now, there are times when I'm reading it where I was like, yeah, the comedy's fine. This feels appropriate. But then there's times where I was like, ouch, I don't know how I feel about this because, like, an example, the first chapter you read, right, Ryo, the main character, his nickname is City Hunter in Japan. And he's over here trying to get a client because she needs like a bodyguard or whatever. And then she got held hostage. And the guy is in front of the glass window where there's just bystanders walking around, and he says, yeah, go ahead, try to shoot me, you're just gonna shoot them. And Ryo's like, fine. So he shot anyways, disarmed the guy, and he's like, wait, but the glass didn't break. And Ryo was like, well, if I can't shoot them, I just have to slow the bullet down. So he shot through his hand to slow the bullet down, so that way he didn't break the glass and hurt anybody else. And I was like, oh, okay, so this is the kind of character we're seeing here. And, later down the line, as it gets way more comedic and more gag-like, in a sense, he loses that sense. I mean, sure, he's still a very serious character, right? And when he gets into those moments, I think those are really good. That's the main part I like about his character. But just that moment from the first chapter, you don't really get to that level as much as I would like them to really get him to that level, But lately, where I was at like towards the 30s in the volumes, it was getting more serious, and I appreciated that. Another manga I was thinking while I was reading this in the back of my head was Part-Time Killer, right? I've reviewed that before here on the show not that long ago. And that's pretty much essentially the same thing. We have this character in the underground world taking on these kind of missions, and very skilled with a gun, just like Ryo is here. And over on Part-Time Killer, though, it's more serious. I mean, sure, our main character is still very ecchi, perverted and all that, but it's not a main focus of his character, right? Here in City Hunter, Ryo is mainly known as a perv, right? If you were to explain, like, oh, he's just some really skilled marksman who's very perverted, that's the whole point of his character. And I think it's because of the time frame this manga was made, Like I said, I mean, there were times reading it where I was just like, yeah, I really would have rather had it been serious right here. And then there's times where I'm like, okay, yeah, the comedy was pretty good right here. But then there's these bits with his assistant, Kaori, yeah. And it's just this gag where she pulls out a classic like Dr. Slump kind of deal. Like she pulls out a hammer to stop Ryo from trying to, sleep with these girls that they always meet or whatever. And that can get really tiring, and it becomes like fourth wall breaking in a sense, and with that aspect. And I don't know, I guess it's just that time frame, I mean, I still enjoy it for sure, but there's just those things where I was like, I don't know. And even the structure of, like, I guess like a good 2/3 of this manga, it's mainly just like, these are just multiple story arcs about Ryu, they take on assignment from a woman. Ryo tries to sleep with her, and she's having this dilemma. Ryu doing his own things, saves the day, helps the girl, and gives them a life lesson. They end up falling for him, and then he ends up leaving, while Kaori's always just like messing with him at the same time. And that's pretty much a big chunk of this manga. I don't mind it because there's some really good storytelling there, but it's just like, man, every female's gonna fall in love with him at the end. Like, gosh, what was it? I think it was the first arc, right? This woman hired Ryo to kill somebody for her, and he's like, why? And it's like, oh, because she wants revenge, because they killed her lover, this and that. And then it's like, oh, she's also diagnosed with something and she's gonna die soon. And then Ryo at the end basically says, like, well, how about you just live the rest of your life with me as a lover until, your final passing, I'm like, man, that stuff's really good. That's really cool stuff. But again, that is prior to when he met Kaori, which was his old partner's sister. And then when his partner died in the manga and she took over, that's when that big comedic push kind of really took place. And maybe, I don't know, I kind of really miss early City Hunter when I was reading. I mean, sure, there are some great arcs in here where Ecchi was like in the back of your head reading it, and that was some solid stuff. So there is potential there. The rest of the cast is pretty good. Man, there's some flashbacks where I was like, oh man, did they just, this one panel just hit me with the feels, talking about another mercenary, that takes on jobs in Japan as well. His name's Umibozu. That's what his nickname is. And he was a mercenary back in just other countries, just traveling around with his outfit. And then there was an arc with a flashback to one of his old comrades that died, who had a daughter play the violin, and the flashback was, all the mercenaries at the graves of their comrades, and the father was playing the violin. I was like, ooh, you just caught me with the feels right now. That was some good stuff. Pacing is what it is. My biggest surprise about this manga is how many pages there are per chapter. It was like, early on, it was like 60 pages a chapter. And I'm like, this was Weekly Shonen Jump? Oh my goodness. And then it was like 40s and 30s for a long time. And then, where I'm at now, it's like in the 20s, but like kind of high 20s. And it's just a lot of dialogue to read. So that's why it took me so long to read it. I think I started reading this post ALA, which was already like 2 weeks ago. And, I've just been reading it, and it's like, oh my goodness, like there's just so much, and I'm not even done. Whatever's translated is whatever's translated. There's still like, I think, like I said, 5 or so volumes left to read. So, I'll be definitely reading those when those come out. But then, so we also have, supporting cast, from various areas, and I think it's good to see the supporting cast. And then I think then with those like downtime situations in between them taking on jobs, that's where I'm like, okay, the humor here is fine. I like the humor here. It's just fun. Like, Rio's just making fun of people, teasing everybody. That's just a good time. There's also some really wholesome times here as well. There's been a couple arcs where the client was a child, had to take care of the child. Just some wholesome stuff. Even like there was like one arc I particularly liked was like, oh, where were you? Rio, excuse me, Rio going every day. He's always leaving around this time. He's not telling me about what that light is over there across the city. And it's like, you find out, it's like, oh, it's just this kid with a telescope, who's waiting for surgery. And he's just going over there to visit her every day, so she's not alone, because her sister goes to work and she's by herself all day. And I was like, man, this is really good stuff. I like this, And, it just gives more to Rio as a character, considering, like, once we find out, like, his flashbacks and, like, his story, basically, is, adds just that extra layer of humanity to our main character, which is always good. Because, for a long time, all we really see is just him, just trying to pick up women. That's majority of, the time he's spent, aside from doing all the jobs and whatnot. So, I think overall, I do like this manga. Yes. I can't wait to finish it when everything gets translated. Can't wait to watch the Jackie Chan movie. And that's just going to be a pure comedy, which, I'm kind of fine with, because it's Jackie Chan, so why not? And, other than that, definitely check it out. Just get ready for the long haul, because there's just a lot of dialogue. And, there's some great characters, great designs too, with, it's this era where like they were just, the way they designed the characters' outfits and stuff were really good. I like them a lot. I'm like, yeah, that's how I'm trying to be. I like that aesthetic. Why not, And, good news. I will be going to WonderCon for sure now. So, let me just double check here. Yes. Okay. So I'll be representing the podcast over at WonderCon. We just got approved. So that's cool. So that's where you're going to catch us next, for convention wise anyway. And, sorry, aside from that, so the main reason I read this again was because Jump Force will be playing Jump Force. He's basically Coach Ikame in J-Stars. So, which is interesting, that Kochi Kami is not even announced yet. I think he should always be in the games. Kochi Kami's manga is the longest, serialized, manga ever. Almost as long as the goddamn magazine itself. That is crazy. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about City Hunter. Again, I think one crutch for me is just that there's way too much humor than I would like. And like I said, of course, like there's times where I'm like, yeah, no, it's fine. But then there's times where I'm like we will have like serious moments and it's like, oh wait guys, hold on. We can't have serious moments without a gag. We have to have a gag right here. Boing, and then you get the gag at the last second and it's just like, oh well, so much for that scene. Which is what they do say here and there. So, I do think at the end of the day, it is a good time. Go check it out. And, the next manga I'll be reading is called Teppu. That one is way shorter. So, look forward to that soon. And other episodes on the podcast, of course. And while we wait for that, guys, you can always email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com if you have any questions, comments, concerns. Also, Arrow is back. I didn't watch the mid-season premiere, so I'm going to be watching that soon this week, as well as the, the new episode, so look out for the Arrow reviews coming back. And then, if you want to stay up to date with us, that's at Unversed Podcast anywhere you go on social media. And, of course, always check out Marvel Talk. We'll be posting episodes here and there. We have a really fun one. Actually, a friend of Shelby's was a guest not that long ago, and it's basically his take on the MCU, and he's only watched, I think, 2 or 3 movies. It was Iron Man and Guardians of the Galaxy. That's all he's seen from the MCU, and it's a really fun time to hear him explain to me and Shelby what's going on in the movies, because we're only showing him the posters for each movie. So the first episode of that series is out. We're just talking about phase 1 right there. And then we're going to come back and do a phase 2 and 3. We also have our trailer analysis for Far From Home. I'm almost done with the Spider-Man DLC. So me and the boy Jake will be reviewing that hopefully soon. So be on the lookout for that. Again, that's Marvel Talk. And then BFM Podcast, Big Fucking Mood. Right, there is a new episode. We talk about this amazing movie, Detachment, starring Adrian Brody, and as well as other strong members of the cast. So I definitely recommend you check that out. And thank you for listening as always, guys, and enjoy this track from Macross.